Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mary if you're new here, and I don't know how, but the time has come to review if I read the 23 books that I wanted to read in 2023. And this was actually one of my first ever videos on YouTube, on this YouTube channel, and I watched it back today. A little cringe, but that's okay. Besides that, it was crazy to see how excited I was to read all of these books. And now we get to talk about my fails and my successes with all 23 of these books. I have in my reading journal here all the 23 books, and I thought we could maybe go through all the books I didn't end up reading. So of the 23 books, I did not read 7, which is pretty good, I would say. I've been beating up myself about it for sure this past couple months because I was like, I have so many books left. It basically was that I would have to read almost 2 a month, and I thought that was so achievable, but man, it is hard to stick to a TBR. We've got the stack here, and let's just talk about it. And right now, as of recording, it is December 15th, so I do have the time to hopefully get through at least one of these books. So maybe by the end of the year, the number will be down to 6. We'll see. The first one is A Game of Thrones, which is very sad because this is one of the books that has been on my TBR for a very long time. And you can see I have read it, or read parts of it. And I was saving this for the winter time, so for December, and I just haven't gotten to it yet. I don't think I will get to it yet, but I'm hoping beginning of 2024. We'll see. This is definitely going to be read. It is still a book I'm very, very interested in reading. It just hasn't happened yet for some reason. The next book I have here is George Orwell's 1984, which is funny because this is also one of the books I've had on my TBR for years. And I am thinking I might pick this up and try to finish it by the end of the year. This is kind of one of the top contenders. So hopefully we'll get to this by the end of the year, but it is definitely another book that is staying on my TBR. The next book we've got is Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse. This is also another thin one. I just recently read or finished Orlando a couple months ago, so I just wasn't in the mood to stick with another book by Virginia Woolf. But again, another book staying on the TBR. Next we have We Are All Made of Glue by Mariana Levichka. I feel like I probably butchered that in the first video as well. Yeah, I haven't read this book yet. I don't know. I have no pull towards it. I don't know if I'm going to keep it. I feel like I should give it a chance. Maybe I can give it 50 pages and see if I will, be drawn into the book. And if not, I will donate it. But yeah, I don't know why, but this is probably the top book on this list where I was like, no, not reading that one next. Didn't even have any want to read it for some reason, which is sad. It could be a very fantastic book. I just haven't read it. The next book I'm also kind of disappointed that I didn't read, and it's Period Repair Manual by Laura Briden. And this one was one of the 2 nonfiction that I had on this list. And I was I read a good chunk of this book. I think I was 50 pages in, and it was just so similar to the last period type book that I read last year. And so when I was trying to pick this up in February, I'm like, I feel like I'm just kind of reading the same book again, and it really bored me. So I just put it down, and I was like, I will pick it back up later. And I haven't yet, so a little disappointing. I am going to keep this one, and maybe we'll try picking it up again. The next book I am also very sad about, and that is Don Quixote by Cervantes. This was very high on my TBR, and I just got spooked. That's just the simple, straightforward answer. I'm spooked by this book. I feel like I'm over my big book fear, but then I see some classics, and I'm just like, maybe maybe I'll read this after the next book I'm reading, or maybe I'll read this next month, and then I just never pick it up. This will stay on the TBR, and I even got a different copy that Ben McAvoy told me to get, as I was mentioning in my first video that I wanted to get the Penguin, like the classics version, and yeah, I bought it. Didn't read it. This book hurts, and like I just talked to my friends about it this week, and I'm like, I don't even want to talk about it. But I did not finish War and Peace, which I started in January. It's so upsetting. I am 25% through. Having a blast when I do read it, but I've had a couple breaks between this year where I just was busy reading other chunky books, and I feel like I just didn't have the time to focus on it. But I feel like I am kind of wanting to change up the way I read and slow it down, and I want to talk about that in another video, but I'm bringing this bad boy into 2024 with me. I'm still reading it, just very slowly. I am sad I didn't get to finish it this year, but I will finish it, and you know, sometimes slow and steady wins the race, and that's just going to be the case with War and Peace. So those are the 7 books that I did not read from my 23 and 2023. Let me grab a drink, and then we'll talk about I have to do the math, 16 books that I read. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yes, 16 books that I read out of this list. So out of these 16 books, I do not have one of them, and that is because I got rid of it. And it is my lowest rated book from this list, and that was Call Me By Your Name by Andre Akiman. I gave this book 2 stars. I talked about it in my October wrap-up, I believe. Did not have a good time, didn't like the themes and the things that were talked about in that book. It was just very icky for me, and I'm really upset that that was the case, because I thought it was going to be like a new favorite, just based off of people's reviews. And it wasn't. Very disappointing. Wasn't for me. It is definitely for other people, because I can see the reviews online, but maybe I'm just in the minority with this book. I didn't really like it. The only thing I could say that I did enjoy about the book is the language and the prose. It was fantastic, beautifully written, but the things that were written about were not. Next, we can talk about my 3 stars, 3.5 stars. So we've got Stephen King's The Shining, which I recently read. Have a whole vlog about it. I think it was in my 24-hour readathon. I gave this 3 stars. I thought it was just okay. My first Stephen King book. Again, I did enjoy the writing. I just thought it dragged on a lot. Wasn't very spooky, scary like I thought it was going to be, like how everyone described Stephen King. Wasn't scary for me. I just didn't like some of the themes and some of the choices made in this book. Then next we have A House in the Sky by Amanda Lindhout and Sarah Corbett. So this is a memoir. I initially gave this 4 stars. I'm thinking it is more of a 3.5 now that I reflect on this book. So this is a memoir about Amanda, who was basically like I wouldn't say like a war photographer, but just a photographer that was very interested in kind of war photography. And her and her friend Nigel took a trip to Somalia and basically got abducted. And she was captive for, I think, over a year and a half, and escaped. That's like putting it in simple terms. Very upsetting, very heart-wrenching memoir, and something that was very, very, very tough to read in some sections. It is difficult to rate a memoir, and it's not that I'm rating their experiences or my enjoyment of reading it. A lot of it is just like the writing, and if it is intriguing for the whole memoir, things like that. And yeah, 3.5 to 4 stars, I would say. Next, we got all the 4 stars. The next book I have is The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and this one I just recently read. So this copy actually has 3 of Gilman's short stories. We've got The Yellow Wallpaper, The Rocking Chair, and Old Water. But all I wanted for this specific list was just to read the short story, The Yellow Wallpaper. So I'll just talk about that book, and then in my December wrap-up, I'll talk about the rest. But The Yellow Wallpaper, I think I'm giving 4 stars. It's hard for me to rate short stories because I always feel like they are too short and that they are missing something. And so I feel like it is really hard for me to rate a short story 5 stars. But wow, this was very fascinating to me. There were so many themes explored in this short story in the, I don't know, 20 pages or something that it had. So it's basically about a woman who you feel like she's kind of crazy just based off the narrative. And she and her husband move into a house, I believe. And in one of the rooms, there's this horrid yellow wallpaper. And the wife is this like, I can't stand this yellow wallpaper. And then you go through a crazy amount of stuff afterwards, and it's basically like this wallpaper comes to life. And there's that word where an author brings life to an inanimate object, and she does that through so many of these stories, and it was just so fascinating to me. There was like feminism and toxic relationships and just like kind of exploring mental health all into this short condensed story. It was fascinating, kind of spooky at the same time, and thrilling. Yeah, the emotions I went through reading this short story were insane. But again, it's just they always feel too short, and I feel like there's so much more that could have been done. But yeah, I would say it was a good 4 stars. Did enjoy it, and I guess spoiler alert, I did also enjoy the other ones. The next book I have here is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. And this one honestly might enter in the 5-star category. But the only reason why I rated it 4, and I think I rated it 4.5 stars, was that it took me just a long time to get into this book. I think the first 50 pages took me quite a few months to actually get through, and I was just reading it at a bad time. But once I started reading and getting into the story, I couldn't put it down. It was such a haunting yet amazingly written story, and funny, so hilarious. And I actually just also read one of Oscar Wilde's plays, The Importance of Being Earnest, and man, he is slowly becoming one of my favorite authors because he just knows how to write and keep you engaged. And this one, such a fantastic classic, so easy, so digestible, and definitely one I recommend to everybody. The next book I have here that I rated 4 stars is The Book of Lymph by Lisa Levitt, and this is a nonfiction book all about your lymphatic system. So this book was really great. I found it was a lot of digestible information, and I learned a lot, and there are a lot of like at-home practices and step-by-step tutorials that you can follow. I just found some stuff didn't really apply to me, and then a lot of the step-by-step tutorials kind of sometimes hard to follow the graphs. I'm a very big visual person, so I feel like if I watched a video version, I would be able to grasp it and remember it so much faster, and I just find it hard to come back to this and remember and understand all of the massages that are provided in this book. So I just find I don't think I use all the information in this book to its fullest potential just because of the delivery. So I still think it's a fantastic book and really something that I don't see a lot about. So yeah, really enjoyed it. 4 stars. Definitely a book I'm going to keep. The next book I read was Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, and this I gave 4.5 stars, I believe. And this is also another book that, like, I think with a reread, it would become a 5-star book. And this is basically all about the love story between Lizzie Bennet and Darcy, a classic. And I actually still have not watched the movie, which is insane. I really need to get to it, but I adored this book. Again, the only thing was that it took me a while to get into this book, but once I was in it, I was hooked and I loved everything about it. Love Jane Austen's writing. I find her writing is so particular and very noticeable and very different from other writers, and it's just like easily digestible yet unique. And I feel like the way she describes things and describes people is very unique. I'm reading right now Northanger Abbey by her, and I'm finding so many parallels between the two stories and the writing, and I'm just like, yeah, this, like, I now understand Jane Austen's writing, and I can point it out because it's just so particular and so unique. So yeah, loved Pride and Prejudice. Definitely recommend. So the next one, I'm not I'm not sure if it's a little cheat, but I've got Little Woman here. So in my 23 and 2023 video, I had a set of Little Woman books. So there was like Little Woman, Little Men, Joe's Boys, and another one. And I read the Little Woman in that book set, but the Little Woman was part one of Little Woman because it previously was published in two separate volumes, but now Little Woman is just known as the part one and the part two stuck together. So I technically only read part one of Little Woman, but I am counting it because I didn't know better. But I have another new volume that I purchased, and I definitely need to get to part two. But I did give Little Woman 4 stars. It was just such a fun story. I feel like maybe if I read the entire installment, parts 1 and 2, it might be a better rating. I just don't know, because I don't know what happens. But yeah, that was a tragedy, but I'm counting it. Then the last book we have here as a 4-star is Babel by R.F. Kuang. I have a vlog about this book. It was under my Reading Dark Academia for a Week vlog, and fantastic book. I still think about this book a lot. I don't know if it might end up being 5 stars for me. Robin just kind of haunts me, honestly. And this world haunts me. Yeah, beautiful book. A little bit of a journey to go through. Some boring parts, but I did enjoy the boring parts, and lots of action at the end. And it was definitely a fun time and a hard time all at once. And yeah, R.F. Kuang is a genius. Loved this book. Lastly, we'll talk about all the books that I gave 5 stars. So I gave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books 5 stars. So that's almost, again, a third of the books were given 5 stars, which I think is a pretty darn good amount. So the first book we have here is A Gathering of Shadows by V. Schwab, which was the second book in the Darker Shades of Magic series. I gave this book 5 stars. I believe I gave the first book 3 or 4 stars. The second one is definitely better. I am so looking forward to the third book. This one was a little bit less drama, I think. But I'm just like, my memory is coming back. It's all these different scenes that are popping in my head. Yeah. Adored this book, adored this series, and I am so scared to finish the series, and the last book is very big. And I do have a vlog about this one. I think this is when I did reading 200 pages a day challenge, which I failed terribly. I need to redo that challenge, but oh yeah. Lots of emotions, but that was a fantastic book. Oh, and the next book we have here is a part of a series as well. Us Against You by Frederick Bachman. I read this in April. I just know the month because I was in Mexico when I read this. Freaking adore this series. Probably one of my favorite series of all time is the Beartown series, and this is the second book. There is one more book called The Winners. I am also terrified, if not most, like, that is like my most terrifying book to read, because I do not want this world to end, and I'm so scared for it to end. It makes me so sad to think about it, but yeah, this book was, again, a little less drama than the first book, Beartown, but I feel like you just got to explore the characters so much more and get to understand them, and oh, my heart just breaks for these characters. Like, I actually have like a physical reaction thinking about them in this world, and I have no words. 5 stars, 6-star territory. Yeah, like, I'm sweating this book. I don't want to cry, but amazing, amazing, amazing. 5 freaking stars. And those two, I didn't really go into much detail about those 2 books because they're second in a series, so I don't really have much to say without getting into spoilers. But I recommend those 2 series very, very much. The first one, The Darker Shades of Magic, is fantasy, and then The Beartown is more like just general fiction. The next book is also in a series, but they can be read as standalones, and that is Heartless by Elsie Silver, which is crazy because this is the second book in the Chestnut Springs series. There's 5 total, and I read books 2 to 5 this past year. So I like actually can't believe that that has all happened this year, and I didn't know all the people in this world in the beginning of this year. Absolutely crazy for me. But this is Heartless. This is book 2. This is about Cade and Willa. Cade is a single dad, and Willa basically gets hired as a nanny for the summer. And love ensues. 5 stars. The Chestnut Springs series in total is a 5-star series. Cowboy romances, small town, Canadian author. There is quite a bit of spice, but fabulous. Like, I cannot say anything bad really about this series. It's not my favorite in the series, but one of my favorites. The next book I read, I actually also just finished last month, and that is Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. So this is like a general fiction sci-fi type book about a woman named Kathy, and you kind of follow along her, talking about her life growing up in this type orphanage type school with her 2 friends, Ruth and Tommy, and it goes from there. That's all you need to know. Amazing book. So much exploration about friendship and humanity, really. Very emotional, very mundane, pretty boring, but I found it like fascinating and thrilling for me. But overall, very low stakes, not much craziness happens, but emotional for sure. 5 stars. Absolutely adored this book. The next hunker we have here, I can't believe I actually finished this book, and these tabs are so mesmerizing to me. I can see that they're like, though, staining the edges of the book, but we've got The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky, and this was such a ride. Absolutely adored this book. Honestly, probably one of the top contenders for my favorite book of the year. It is an exploration about 3 brothers and their father, and it is like a murder mystery about who killed their father, and this book is just so big. There's just so much that it explores that I can't even cover anything about it. I'm sorry guys, my mic keeps cutting out. I really need to buy a new mic, but we're gonna wrap this up quickly. I have a whole video dedicated to this book and my thoughts about it, so I will link it in the cards, but amazing. Loved it. If you want to dedicate some time to a Russian classic that is very, very long, I recommend this one 100%. It is very easily digestible. It's not a hard book to read. There are parts of it that are tough. There is a lot of things that you can read in between the lines. I do suggest taking your time with it, but it is a beautiful, beautiful book. The next book we have here is The Ballad of Never After, which I also can't believe I've read for the first time this year because the third and last book just came out, and I have a whole vlog. I feel like I'm saying this about a lot of these books, but I have a whole vlog dedicated to that, and I was reading this in that vlog as well. But this is the second book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. This is probably the best book in that series. This is like 6-star category. I love this series. It is like a YA romantasy. Absolutely adore it. Recommend it to everybody and anybody. Yeah. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And then last but not least, we've got Emily Henry's Happy Place. So this was her new romance released this year. I gave this 5 stars because it was such a great exploration about friendship, hardship in a relationship, and this wasn't just romance, it was also a whole story about friendship and long-term friendship. I'm sorry guys, like my whole setup and all my technology basically wants me to stop talking, but one thing about me is that I've known most of my closest friends for majority of my life, so long-term friendship means a lot to me, and there is so many hurdles when it comes to friendship, especially when you've known them for a very long time. And it's just all of those topics were explored in this book as well as relationships. So I just adored it. I related to it so much. Yeah, loved it. So those were all 23 books that I wanted to read in 2023. Didn't get to all of them, but honestly, I am proud of the amount of books that I did get to, and I actually ended up the year owning all of these books. I think I started the year owning 18, but somehow by the end of it, I owned all 23, and I got rid of one because it was the worst on the list. Let me know if you guys did the 23 in 2023 and how that whole thing turned out for you. If you read everything, if you DNF'd any, and if you didn't read some of them, DNF'd some of them, let me know why, and what also were the books that were on your list, and what were your favorites. I do want to do a 24 in 2024. I think that would be really, really fun, and it's still not too big of a challenge because that would mean like 2 a month. I feel like after next year, I don't know about like the 25, 26, 27. I feel like it's going to get a lot harder, but I think 24 is still a manageable number. But we'll talk about that in another video. Let me know if you've read any of these 23 books and all of your thoughts about them. Thank you for spending all of this time with me. And if you have been here since the beginning when I posted that 23 in 2023, let me know. I know there's not a lot of you because I think I had like 10 subbies. Thank you all for spending this time with me today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, wherever you are. And I will see you guys very, very soon. Happy reading. Bye!
Lazy Sunday mornings, hiding under covers. I don't mind staying in with you. Play your favorite movie, laying right beside me.